Welcome to this explainer. Whenever we start discussing the negative price standard, the system where you actually pay your client a penalty if the promised value is missing, we almost always hit the exact same wall of hesitation. Sellers look at the mechanics, they see the penalty, and they instantly ask one specific question. It's absolutely the most common fear business owners have about introducing this level of accountability. So today, we're going to tackle that fear head on, because understanding the reality behind it will completely change how you view your own business.
And here is that question. What if everyone claims the negative one? Now, I get it. It sounds cautious, right? It sounds like you're just being financially responsible and protecting your downside. But honestly, it is completely the wrong question to ask. If you're focused on a massive influx of claims, you're staring at the mechanism instead of looking in the mirror. Let me explain why panicking over a high volume of claims entirely misses the point of what a negative price guarantee is actually doing.
Here is the crucial, somewhat uncomfortable truth. If everyone claims the negative one, the guarantee is not failing. You are. If a bunch of eligible buyers are making valid claims under the conditions you set, well, one thing is undeniably true. Your business did not deliver enough real value to the right people. The guarantee actually did its job perfectly. It exposed reality. A high valid claim rate is not a system failure on the guarantee's part. It's undeniable evidence that something is critically wrong with your offer, your promise, or your delivery. Think about the core dynamic playing out here. Negative one did not create the problem. It revealed it. That disappointment, it was already there. Your buyers were already feeling it, and the missing value was already a reality in the market. The guarantees simply removed the hiding places and made that disappointment measurable. It took all the friction out of the feedback loop. So the problem existed long before you offer the penalty just finally brought it to your immediate attention. Most sellers will tell you they fear the financial cost of that penalty. But if we're really being honest with ourselves, the deeper fear is quite different. The real fear is not losing money. The real fear is being measured. People are terrified of learning that their offer is weaker than they thought, that their systems simply can't support their promise, or that they're selling a level of confidence they haven't actually earned. Measurement strips away our comforting stories, It turns vague confidence into visible, undeniable evidence. And notice how this changes a business's entire strategy. Most fragile businesses are essentially built to avoid the truth. They hide behind fine print, they delay refunds, they blame customers when things go wrong, and they keep their promises intentionally vague. They're just surviving on hope and inertia. But a strong business operating under the negative price standard, it kills that strategy completely. It operates strictly on visible evidence of delivered value. It doesn't ask you to be perfect, it simply asks you to stop hiding from the truth. It really helps to think of the guarantee not as some kind of flashy marketing bravado, but as a public scoreboard. It's a highly transparent metric asking one very simple question. Did the buyer receive the promised value under the agreed conditions? It doesn't care if the seller tried really hard, or if the team meant well, or if the buyer was in a bad mood. Good intentions simply do not replace delivered value. A claim is just an information event showing you exactly where the value broke down. So when those claims do happen, and they will happen, a business has a choice between two reactions. The weak reaction is to panic and blame. They'll say things like, oh, the customers are too difficult, or they're abusing the guarantee, or we need to write stronger fine print. And sure, occasionally abuse happens. But when the exact same complaints repeat, you have to stop treating every signal as an exception. The much stronger reaction is to diagnose and map the system. You stop hiding and you start actively looking for the break. Because if the same problem is appearing over and over, it's not an exception anymore. It's a clear system message. So do not panic when claims rise. Find the wound. Ask yourself, what did we actually promise? What did the buyer reasonably understand from that? What was delivered, and where exactly did the process break? Once you make that wound visible, you have a very clear path forward. And generally, there are three primary places a business needs to look for that wound. The very first place to look is the promise itself. If claims are high, we probably need to tighten the promise. A vague promise creates vague expectations, and that inevitably leads to broad, sweeping disappointment. If your promise sounds incredibly powerful but can't actually be measured in reality, it's just going to create arguments when it comes time to evaluate the guarantee. Honestly, if the promise cannot be judged clearly, it just cannot be guaranteed honestly. The contrast here is pretty stark. Sure, a vague promise might temporarily get more people in the door, but it completely collapses under the weight of real accountability. A clear, measurable outcome, on the other hand, is highly survivable. Can the expected value be described in one simple sentence? Can failure be defined fairly? Tightening the promise doesn't mean you're making it weaker. In fact, a narrower, clearer promise is infinitely stronger than a broad, inflated one that immediately fails under pressure. But let's say you have a clear promise. Well, it's still completely useless if your delivery can't consistently repeat it. So the next place we look is tightening the delivery system. You might have a perfectly fair promise and a great buyer, but the delivery still fails because of unclear handoffs, missing standards, slow support, or maybe because the delivery depends entirely on one heroic team member instead of a reliable, repeatable operating system. This is where we have to upgrade. We move away from weak delivery by installing real quality checkpoints. You write the checklist. You clearly define the handoff. You add an early warning signal before the value breaks completely. And this isn't just adding bureaucracy. This is absolutely essential protection for your customer, your team, and your cash flow. A normal business can carry inefficiency for years by just saying, we'll fix it later. Under the negative price standard, you simply cannot do that. And this completely reframes the financial cost of a claim. Think about it this way. A claim is often just the invoice for a process you refused to fix earlier. Your inefficiency suddenly becomes a literal bill you have to pay out of pocket. That pressure forces a real decision. You either upgrade your systems fast or you bleed out financially. The financial penalty is actually the necessary pressure that finally forces an inefficient business to become undeniable. Now, even with a crystal clear promise and a rock-solid delivery system, you might still see high claims. When that happens, it usually reveals a buyer fit problem. This means we must tighten the target. Your offer might be incredibly valuable, and the delivery might work perfectly, but it might not work for every single use case, timing, or starting condition. High claims in a scenario are telling you loud and clear that the wrong buyer is entering the offer. Now, it's not that every buyer is wrong, but not every buyer is right for your specific offer. Clean eligibility filters aren't some sneaky trick to deny valid claims. They are a vital tool to prevent unsuitable pairings from happening in the first place. The goal here is never just more buyers at any cost. The goal is the right buyers, coming in under clear conditions with a promise the seller can actually keep. We're replacing the wrong buyer with clean, honest eligibility. All of these elements come together to create what we call a constructive loop. The negative price standard is not just a one-time marketing gimmick. It's a continuous pressure system. Here's how it flows. Claims reveal patterns. Those patterns reveal your weak point. In response, the business tightens the promise, improves the delivery, or finds the target buyer, and then you test again. Real evidence from claims fuels this relentless cycle of constant refinement. A serious business should never be afraid of evidence. What you should be afraid of is repeating the exact same preventable failure over and over while pretending that nothing is wrong. The goal here is actually not zero claims. The goal is relentlessly lowering preventable failure. We're shifting from just absorbing repeated claim costs in the dark to actively using those claims as a precise repair list for continuous system improvement. A valid claim isn't just a cost, it's high-value evidence the business can use. And that brings us to how we should ultimately view the penalty itself. A lot of people see a seller-side penalty and think, it's insane to pay when you fail. But look, if you made the promise and you want to claim premium quality, reliable results, and ultimate trust in your market, you must accept a consequence when you fail under clear conditions. Paying for your mistakes is not weakness, it is leadership. True leadership isn't standing up and saying we never fail. True leadership is saying when we fail, we see it, we own it, we pay the consequence, we fix the system, and we become much harder to fail next time. That is the fundamental difference between simply asking for trust and actually earning it. A business that can survive being measured like this becomes incredibly hard to compete against. To really prove how this standard operates in the real world, let's briefly look at NegBook. NegBook is actually the first book in the world to carry a negative price. Its English title translates roughly to, Wellbeing is impossible if you don't measure it. It takes this entire philosophy of deep accountability right out of the realm of theory and builds it into a physical product that people interact with every day. The battle cry for NegBook is incredibly simple and totally uncompromising. Either you read the book and it helps you, or you read the book and it pays you. The seller is accepting the consequence when value is missing under clear conditions. If your promise is real, you should be perfectly willing to be judged on whether it creates real value. You can see exactly how this operates for yourself over at negbook.com. Ultimately, the right response to the fear of claims is never to avoid accountability. Because a business that relies on its buyers staying quiet about their disappointment is a business that was already fragile. The right response is to build an offer that can survive truth. If you're afraid that everyone will claim the 1M, you aren't really afraid of the penalty. You're just afraid that your systems aren't ready to be judged by real delivery. If you want to know if your business is actually ready for this, there's a very clear next step. The -1 diagnostic is designed to help businesses identify whether claims would reveal a weak promise, a weak delivery, or a weak buyer fit long before you ever launch a controlled negative price pilot. You can apply for the -1 diagnostic using the link in the description or by visiting negbook.com/negative price standard. We'll leave you with this final critical thought. The -1 does not create disappointment. It simply reveals that disappointment early enough for you to actually do something about it. So embrace the measurement. Do not fear the claim. Fear the weakness the claim reveals. Are you ready to stop hiding and start measuring?